Hello, friends. This is another part to my seasonal journey. This is a lesson I learned. Was not an easy lesson, but it was a lesson. And that is God's answer to our prayers does not mean it's going to be easy. In Acts 9, when Paul was converted, Jesus told Ananias to pray for Paul. And in Acts 9 and 16, Jesus said, I will show him how much he must suffer for my name. There's this misconception that living for Christ is an easy road, or if you're following and you're in the center of His will, then everything should be going right and everything should be going good and you should hit no obstacles. Well, that was wrong. That's what God told Ananias when he went to pray for Paul. In Acts 21, Agabus prophesied that Paul would be bound and handed over to Rome by the Jews. The people tried to persuade Paul not to go to Jerusalem, but Paul told them he was ready to even die for Jesus if it became necessary. At that point, the people in verse 14 of that chapter said, let God's will be done. Just as Paul suffered many things for Christ, he was in the center of Christ's will. He endured beatings, floggings, imprisonment, hunger, stonings, dangers from others, shipwrecks. John the Revelator, the one that wrote St. John's Gospel and wrote the Revelation, he was on the Isle of Patmos and had previously been boiled in oil in an attempt to try to take his life. Jesus Christ himself suffered ridicule, beatings, humiliation, lies, and death. When we truly want God's will in our season of life, it doesn't mean we're going to have an easy road. If we submit to His will, be prepared to accept whatever He allows and wants. Remember, this process is to strengthen you, is to get us in conformity to His will. And let me just remind you, He's got a much bigger picture He's looking at than we do. Most of the time, our vision is tunnel vision. We see what's right before us. We see us. We don't see the big picture. We don't see beyond ourselves. But God sees past, present, and future. He sees it all at one time. He already knows. He says He knows the beginning from the end. So, and He knows the end from the beginning. He knows all of it. We don't. That's the point of submitting ourselves to Him. When we truly want God's will, it doesn't mean it's going to be an easy road. We've got to understand that the enemy of our soul doesn't want us to reach what God's plan is for our lives. And we are going to face a fight because he's trying to stop us. He's going to try to discourage us. He's going to try to get us to compromise so that we will delay, deter, or even give up on the promise God has. Jesus experienced this, but He overcame it, and we can overcome it too. There are things in our life that God has to also work out of us during this process. Athletes will tell you that they have to get to the point in their mind to work through the pain in order to reach the point of being successful in what they're doing, in order to get their body to the point that it will perform at its best. God uses our hard times to strengthen us and refine us so that we can bring Him honor and glory, and in the end will also benefit us. Hebrews 12 verses 1 and 2 state, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seating in the place of honor beside God's throne. We can be sure and we can be certain that even if the road is hard, but when we submit to God's will, that God has a plan and a purpose. And we need to keep our focus on him. We need to realize he sees the big picture. And don't give up. Don't let the enemy stop you. And don't let the enemy lie to you and tell you that if you were in God's will and you were doing what God wanted you to do and what was supposed to happen, that everything would be easy and everything would work out. That's not always the case. If you're going to climb a mountain, there's going to be some rocks and ledges that you're going to have to cross over. There's going to be some rough places. But the result and the place that you end up is well worth it. Hang in there. God is doing a work when you submit to him. God bless you.